pleasure to introduce our first speaker. I think you are, right, Jim? You're on first. Jim, great talk. Come on, Jim Hughes, former dean of the Boston School of Executive.
Thank you, Alan, for that kind introduction. Truth in advertising, however, Professor Kornhauser did give me very firm instructions to be brief this morning. I think it was because at my presentation last year, he observed that during the first 10 minutes, 90% of the audience paid attention. During the second 10 minutes, 50% were distracted. During the third 10 minutes, 100% were engaged in sexual. So, with the discipline I have not shown in many years, I will attempt to proceed forthwith. What I'd like to do today is take a quick look at long-term demographic changes that are going to impact and be impacted by transportation innovations. However, before I get into that, there are always short-term cyclical factors at play that impact the long-term structural shifts. Almost everything appears possible in an upcycle. The exact opposite prevails in the down cycle. So a brief observation on where we are in the business cycle. Basically, we are still in a near record-breaking economic expansion. It's now 119 months old, June of 09 to May 2019. It is now the second longest economic expansion in the nation's history, the status it achieved just over a year ago. 46 days from now, July 1, it will set a new all-time historic record, 121 months in length. And that will surpass the current record holder, which was the March 91 and March 2001 economic expansion. So, the bottom line, congratulations to all of you, since you are still vertical, and have not yet gone toes up. You have lived through the two longest economic expansions in the history of the Republic. Basic admonition, however, if you think it's difficult to get things done today, cheer up. The worst is yet to come. We have yet to invent a boom that lasts forever. At some point, we're going to have to confront another serious setback, maybe even a catastrophic setback, which begs the question, how long can the current expansion last? Well, I'm going to go out on a limb, way out on a limb, and give you my learned forecast, my highly learned forecast. The expansion will continue until it doesn't. Seriously, let's just say the expansion still has gas in the tank. Virtually all of our metrics are still highly positive. But let's put our current situation into perspective. Australia, the wonder down under, hasn't had a recession since 1991, 28 years ago. So that's something we can aspire to. And if we could match that, there's no stopping autonomous vehicles. Now, I should have pointed out to you earlier that economic forecasters are not held in very high esteem in New Jersey. In fact, there's an old saying that if you took all the economic forecasters in New Jersey and laid them end to end, they'd still point in different directions. Truth be told, we actually have three kinds of economic forecasters in New Jersey. Those who can count and those who can't. And all three types have never demonstrated any visible skills in predicting how long expansions will last. Whatever, the current cyclical position is overarched by structural transformations that over the past half-decade have rendered obsolete many of our pre-recession assumptions and conventions. All of these are destined to impact or be impacted by transportation innovations that are about to unfold. Today I'm just going to focus on two of these. First, demographics, the greatest age structure transformation in history, the changing of the demographic guard. And second, re-suburbanization, which is first on the scene in the last 2 years, supplanting the de-suburbanization that was endemic in the immediate post-recession years. So we may be seeing disruptions to disruptions. To Time is of the essence, let's get with it. At the forefront of demographic change are structural shifts. We are now experiencing the changing of the demographic guard, the greatest age structural transformation in history. For all of you youngsters out there, I should point out that the person on the left is a baby boomer. For those of you at the other end of the age spectrum, the person on the right is a millennial. And these are just two of the 5 generations defining our transformation. Let's start with the ancients, the fabled baby boom, born 46 to 64, the most suburban-centric generation in history. Now, I do have to admit that one of my favorite academic spectator sports is terrorizing baby boomers about their inexorable aging. And I think I've seen more than a few maturing boomers with us here this morning. But I'm going to spare you that torture, mostly. The baby boom's rule in the 20th century was really unquestioned. Where it wanted to live, work, play, ultimately resulted in today's sprawling suburban development patterns. If you don't like our patterns of development today, blame the baby boom. But that suburban-centric legacy is now fading into history. Suffice it to say, at one time boomers used to rock around the clock. Now they're starting to limp around the block. And I think I see some millennials out there chuckling about this slide. Millennial admonition. Challenge boomers at your peril. It is much safer to respect your elders if only out of fear. Why is that the case? Remember, they are old for a reason. They have survived and thrived for a reason. That's actually Professor Kornhauser before his last In any case, by 2030, a little more than a decade away, the great calamity will have unfolded. The baby boom will be between 66 and 84 years of age. There will not be a single baby boomer aged 65 or younger. I think they will consider this a disaster of biblical proportions. As a result, the generation that once was alleged to have dropped acid in order to escape reality is now rapidly dropping antacids in order to cope with reality. One stark reality is that baby boom physical capacities will continue to reduce their mobility options. Already, trikes are supplanting bikes. You'll see these increasingly on our roadways. And I think we can all envision what potentially could come next. The greatest growth of a mobility challenge population cohort in history. Really, providing mobility options for healthy aging is a growing public health problem. Will this option be available for all, or will mobility inequality grow? Potential solutions for future shopping needs for those who can afford it. Now, Alan asked me earlier why I made a career choice to also focus on demographics as well as economics. I replied that while I was an undergraduate, I discovered that I had a real flair of numbers. But then I came to the very harsh realization that I simply did not have enough personality to make it as an accountant. My apology to anybody in the accountancy. Okay, fair is only fair. Revenge of the accountancy. A woman hears from her doctor that she has only a half a year to live. Distraught, she asks the doctor, what should I do? The doctor advises her, quickly marry a demographer. The woman asks, will marrying a demographer cure my illness? No, the doctor answered. But it will make the 6 months seem like a lifetime. The second dimension of the great age structure transformation. In 1965, births plummeted. The result was the baby bust, originally called the baby bust, an undersized population cohort born between 1965 through 1980. This group has now been labeled Gen X or Generation X. It's America's neglected middle child, sandwiched between these two noisy behemoths, the huge baby boom and millennial generations. By 2030, they will be between 50 and 65 years of age. They will assume the leadership ranks left open by exiting boomers. How will their leadership and management styles differ from their baby boom predecessors? How will they view smart cars and autonomous vehicles? How will they view the needs of mobility-restricted individuals and transit deserts? That story is yet to unfold. Third, demographic disruption, Gen Y millennials. Now, I know you're all suffering from millennial fatigue, so please bear with me. Millennials born between 1981 and 1996 are the first population cohort born and reared in the digital age. That is their defining element. Well, not completely. More recently, they have become known as Generation Avocado Toast, breakfast champions. In any case, millennials have now supplanted boomers as the most powerful demographics. They now rule. They have become the prime labor force commodity, eagerly sought by corporate America that requires next-gen digital talent. And where that talent wants to be now drives corporate vocational decision-making. Much of the millennial talent's post-recession spatial movements to date could be described as sprawl withdrawal. But millennials are not immune to growing up. By 2030, they will be between 34 and 49 years of age, the prime child-rearing stage of the life cycle. Will their preferences change in the unfolding era? That's a key question that remains to be answered. Will this commutation mode affect their residential locational decisions? Will they leave the mobility constricted behind in urban areas? Fourth generation, originally post-millennials, now Gen Z. So if you are tired of criticizing millennials, you now have a new generation to deploy, Gen Z. Born between 1997 and 2012, it is the first post-World War II generation born in two different centuries, the 20th and 21st. While millennials comprise the first generation raised in the digital age, post-millennial Gen Zers comprise the first generation raised in the mobile era of smartphones and social media. They have grown up with access and connectivity to everything, everywhere, instantaneously. Sounds like a perfect generational fit for autonomous vehicles. All new labor force members entering the ranks are now going to be Gen Zers throughout the 2020s. By 2030, they will be 18 to 33 years of age. Will they be hostile to working and living in the suburbs? Or will they embrace suburbia as the new frontier in order to differentiate themselves from their millennial predecessors? One thing is certain, they are going to flood the labor market at the same time smart cars flood the mobility market. Okay, another warning from Alan. The brain can only absorb what the seat can endure, and in a sense I'm starting to stress your endurance, so bear with me. Finally, our fifth generation, Generation Alpha, born starting in 2013. These are largely children of the millennials. Obviously, when we got to Gen Z, we reached the end of the Latin alphabet. However, a shift to the first letter of the Greek alphabet certainly makes some sense, Generation Alpha. And that's consistent with the switch made by the scientific nomenclature. This is the first generation born totally in the 21st century, the start of something new. So the term alpha makes some sense with that. Since birth, they have had screens placed in front of them. Thus the term screenagers has just emerged. And they will be the first generation defined by the era of artificial intelligence, robotics, and autonomous vehicles. And they are probably going to become dependent on smart cars long before they get their first driver's licenses in 2030. So the digital divide fully emerged with millennials. Will a mobility divide fully emerge with alphas? Okay, demographics, done deal. Structural change too, very quickly, post-suburban protocols, disruptions to disruptions. As you all realize, the second half of the 20th century, the dominant force was intense suburbanization, outward growth pressures. Post-2010, and this is the New York region, the dynamic was fully disrupted. Our outer suburbs, all of those shaded areas, lost population from 2010 to 2016, while the inner suburbs and the core were thriving. As a result, the region was contracting in terms of the spatial footprint. A process of desuburbanization was underway. However, we have yet to invent a trend that lasts forever. 2017, 2018 introduced new data. This essentially was a data alert. It showed a modest bounce back by the burbs from resuburbanization. So a key question, is this the start of a reversal of desuburbanization? Or is it, in Wall Street terms, classic Wall Street terms, a dead cat bounce, a temporary disruption of a long-term downward trend? Brief message from Rutger's newly formed shameless plug department. This Rutgers regional report was released last August. It's available online. And it still has traction after 9 months, particularly since the 2018 data released last month showed a very strong continuation of the resuburbanization trend. And the nation is far ahead of the New York region in this process. So the bottom line is the suburbs will still beckon, but I think there's going to be sharp market differentiation throughout the geography. So we're going to have winners and losers in the suburban landscape. And probably transit-deprived environments will increase if that suburbanization trend spreads west. Unfortunately, all forecasters are wrong eventually. Unfortunately, all forecasters are calamitously wrong eventually. But fortunately, eventually can be a very long time. And I'll be out of here very, very difficult to find. So, seriously, I think it is well recognized that I am the only totally objective person in the state of New Jersey. And it is my totally objective opinion that after doing demographic and economic forecasts for more than 4 decades, you should now take my projections as gospel. You have my personal guarantee that they will occasionally be right. So, let me briefly sum up. Demographic and generational change is relentless. All 5 cohorts that I reviewed this morning have distinct age-defined subsets of the mobility disadvantaged and also of the income-challenged subsets. Mobility inequality will strongly parallel income inequality, and renewed suburbanization may exacerbate the problem. Now, an old academic mentor of mine gave me the following presentation advice: speak the truth, but leave immediately thereafter. Thereafter has just arrived. Thank you very much.